Gojo is a talented but lonely guy who's low-key obsessed with making doll clothes. However, his world changes when he catches the school's baddie struggling with making cosplay, but in the process of helping her create her outfits, he ends up making her fall head over heels for him. When Gojo was little, he fell in love with the Hina dolls in his house, which were handcrafted by his grandfather. Since then, Gojo started learning how to make Hina dolls so that he could poke holes in their mouths with his tool. But unfortunately, when his best friend found out about his passion, she called him a sadistic creep, traumatizing him to the core. 15 years later, Gojo wakes up from this nightmare, still insecure about his passion, but he immediately greets his favorite Hina doll with a smile on his face. Then, Gojo walks downstairs for breakfast, where his grandfather Kaoru tells the boy to focus on real girls because Hina dolls cannot make happy noises in bed. Gojo tells the old man how he's shagging a new girl every week. And finally, Kaoru lets out a freakish smile. Later, on his way to school, he notices a few girls on the road and wishes he had some game. Even in the classroom, Gojo sits alone like an outcast because everyone thinks he's a creep. All the students talk about their dreams of becoming OnlyFans stars, but the loser knows nothing except for Hina dolls. Just then, one of the most popular girls in his class comes flying towards him and slams her head on the desk. Her friends immediately come to her aid, but Marin turns her attention to Gojo and apologizes for the disturbance. Seeing her astronomical melons, the loser fails to utter a single word and simply stares at her like a Hina doll. Later, Gojo overhears Marin and her friends talk about the time they insulted a creep who made fun of Marin's anime-watching hobby. Gojo watches her in awe, feeling jealous that Marin's friends accept her, despite her weird hobbies. After class, Gojo's classmates dump their cleaning duties on him, and the loser starts cleaning like a seasoned janitor. Moments later, Marin walks into the classroom and starts helping him. When she asks where his cleaning staff members are, Gojo tells her how his classmates rammed up their duties up his rice cakes. Marin is clearly annoyed by this and tells Gojo to become a man and stand up for himself. A few days later, while Gojo is working on the Hina dolls, he cuts his fingers because he is too distracted by what Marine said to him. The sewing machine also malfunctions, and the loser goes to bed, where he comes up with a brilliant idea. The following day, Gojo uses the Academy's sewing machine and talks to his Hina doll like a weirdo. Just then, Marin enters the room like a drunk father, and Gojo accidentally exposes his comfort doll in front of her. Gojo is ready to be humiliated, but to his surprise, Marin seems interested and demands to know how he can use the machine so well. Gojo tells her about his grandfather's Hina doll shop, causing her to almost drip gravy. She compliments the scary Hina doll in his hands and notices how beautifully it has been made. Gojo is shocked because no one has ever been supportive of his passion except his filthy old grandfather. He tells Marin that he only makes dresses for the dolls, and upon hearing this, Marin becomes excited. She quickly stands up and starts unboxing herself, telling Gojo to turn around. He obeys her command like a loyal dog, but when he turns around, Gojo is surprised to see Marin in a horrible black dress. She explains that as an anime fan, she wants to cosplay a character from her favorite video game. Gojo the Freak has never had a conversation with a girl before, and he abruptly tells Marin that her dress is trash and should be incinerated. But he quickly apologizes by bending over when he notices that Marin is about to cry. She tells him to get up and explains that she wants to get dressed like a fictional character. She explains how she made the dress by herself, but since it looks like a bunch of rotten banana peels stuck together, she asks Gojo for some help. At that moment, Gojo remembers how Marin has always been nice to him, so he declares that he will make her a dress from scratch. While Marin jumps around the room with excitement, Gojo wonders how a stunning girl like Marin is asking for his help. But just then, Marin reveals that the character she wants to cosplay is from an adult-themed game, where girls are always moist and drenched in white mucus. Gojo's pole immediately becomes rock solid, as he was certainly not expecting such an innocent-looking girl to talk about an R-rated video game. He starts asking a lot of questions, and Marin explains that it's about a guy who gets enrolled in an all-girls school and creams everyone. While Gojo is having difficulty standing up straight, Marin adds that the game is filled with humiliation stuff, and asks the loser if he is into that genre. By this time, Gojo is deep inside his subconscious mind, begging to know if this is really happening to him. For a moment, he wonders if Marin is simply messing with him to deflate his ding-dong after inflating it. However, she starts talking about her favorite video game character called Shizuku and wants to look like her. Even though Shizuku is a glizzy connoisseur, Marin wants to be exactly like her. Marin tells him that passion has nothing to do with gender, and that line hits Gojo so hard that his brain locks in, and he finally decides to support her. To help him understand, Marin then hands him a cosplay guidebook packed with step-by-step instructions. It's so detailed that Gojo briefly wonders if she's just hopeless, because there's no way someone can mess this up with instructions this clear. Still, he lets that thought slide and focuses on the task, telling her they need to start preparing properly. Marin then casually asks him to take her measurements, and Gojo immediately panics like his parents just discovered his browsing history. He awkwardly tells her that it's late and tells her to meet him on Monday, but she's so excited that she shows up at his home the very next morning. Gojo is already in panic mode because this is his first time having a girl over, but Marin doesn't care. She simply hands him a gift box and walks straight in like she owns the damn property. She displays her rice cakes like an OnlyFans model, causing Gojo's coctopus prime to enlarge. Marin then urges him to measure her body for the outfit. Hoping to escape the frontal assault, he asks her to turn around, only to realize Marin is hauling a double-wide dump truck that's even more lethal. Just as he is about to measure her head, Gojo gets flustered and propels himself away. When Gojo asks why she is not embarrassed in a swimsuit, Marin explains that she needs to follow all the instructions to make the outfit perfect. Upon hearing this, Gojo finally locks in like a pro tailor and starts mapping out every curve in her body, but then she asks him to measure her feet and crashes into his bed. The loser explains how his bed is filled with fart smells and pee-pee stains, but Marin seems to like the thrill of bodily fluids. She then abruptly places her smelly feet on Gojo's lap and asks him to measure them. With the feet finished, Marin demands a measurement for her massive melons and gets into position. Gojo tries to claim it's inappropriate, but Marin insists that doing it herself will ruin the accuracy. Left with no choice, he leans in, but seeing those levitating orbs hovering inches from his face makes his south pole flutter like a rattlesnake. He somehow controls his gearbox and successfully notes the measurement, but then she tells him that they still need to measure the distance between her tips. Gojo's meat cannon is about to explode, so he refuses to go anywhere near her airbags again. Marin argues that it is vital for the fit, but Gojo reminds her that they're still classmates, not Johnny Sins and Mia Khalifa. Marin finally takes the hint and turns her back to take the measurements herself. Seconds later, she casually announces the distance between her tips is a solid 20 centimeters, which is world class for someone her age. The only task left is the inseam, and Gojo steps up to finally end his misery. But the second his hand gets near Marin's damp rainforest, she blushes for the first time. Once the measurements are done, she gets dressed and hands him the R-rated game so he can study the outfit properly. She then finally leaves, and the loser keeps on staring at her with an ambitious missile in his pants. Later that night, Gojo is locked in his room, taking professional notes on the R-rated game like a dedicated degenerate. His grandfather walks in and is absolutely floored to see his grandson studying such stuff. But he knows that everyone has a right to be a weirdo, and leaves the loser to his filth and fantasy. That night, Gojo has a dream in which Marin wears the cosplay outfit, and lifts her skirt slightly like a pole dancer. But just as she invites Gojo to sniff her armpits, he jolts awake in his bedroom, and realizes that he expelled trillions of semi-humans on his bed, leaving him utterly embarrassed. Later at school, Gojo bumps into Marine, who is swinging her pendulum assets so hard the whole school is watching. She thanks him for the free work and even introduces him to her friends, causing his sausage to hit full mast. She then tries to grab Gojo by his shoulder but accidentally presses her cannons against him, leaving him moist down there. Later, Marin tries to talk about the costume, but Gojo goes into full coward mode and spends the day hiding from her. This makes her slightly upset, but as the creep is about to head home, Marin finally meets him. She abruptly asks him to accompany her to the supermarket, causing all their friends to stare in shock as if they've seen a crime. Gojo, as usual, claims he's busy and tries to chicken out, but Marin angrily confronts him about why he's been acting like a weirdo all day. Finally, the idiot reveals how their friends are getting the wrong idea about their relationship, so they should only talk when no one is around. But this enrages her even further, and she tells him to grow a pair. She then jokingly tells him that they should date, before grabbing his hand and running away like she's some kind of princess. Moments later, they hit the supermarket and head straight for the cosplay section. Gojo reveals a detailed blueprint of the outfit, making Marin gasp like she just saw a flying pig. He then starts geeking over the craft, as it is the only thing he's good at in his miserable life. Soon after, Marin tries to pick a glossy fabric, but Gojo shuts her down, saying it will make her look like a cheap pleasure worker from Bangkok. He explains that since Shizuku is an elite student, her uniform needs a high-class feel, which will make her stand out. After a bit of searching, Gojo finds the perfect fabric bundle, but it's way out of his budget. The loser puts on a constipated face and says he's broke. But Marin whips out an envelope stuffed with cash like a sugar mommy and tells him to spend as much as he needs to. Gojo tries to act tough and initially refuses the money, but he knows his broke backside can't afford it, so he eventually accepts. After this, Marin takes him to a wig ship, and the idiot just stands there in awe at the sheer variety of fake hair. Marin picks a black wig, which looks like it was plucked straight out of a woman's rainforest, but Gojo recommends purple to match Shizuku's gothic personality. He realizes that while Marin loves buying new dresses, her sense of fashion is terrible. He points out that since Shizuku has a weird asymmetrical hairstyle, a medium wig is useless, and they need the long stuff to properly hide the crazy, just like how Marin's swimsuit barely hides her war crimes. Next, the duo hits a lingerie store to score some garters and stockings. While Marine is inside trying on gear, the idiot stands outside the changing room like a terrified mannequin. Marine tells him to relax since it's not a military base, then suddenly pops out to flash her new garter, sending Gojo's blood pressure into the stratosphere. By the time they leave the store, it's late, so they hit a restaurant to grab some dinner. A nearby woman sees them and thinks they're a goals couple, but the vibe dies instantly when Gojo starts loudly discussing the sussy, R-rated details from her game. On the way, Gojo offers to carry the loot home so he can start sweating over the patterns. Marin is already buzzing, wondering where she can debut her new costume, and explains that there are massive events for cosplayers to get themselves photographed. She excitedly tells him she wants to blast her photos all over OnlyFans, and shows the idiot several other girls who are on the platform. As they walk, Marin continues swiping through the digital thirst traps, but soon realizes Gojo has gone silent. She asks if he thinks these girls are hot, but the simp immediately dives into his sob story. He reveals that when he was a kid, he never go out of house and was locked up like a pig. The first time he saw a Hina doll, he was so turned on by the sheer aesthetics that he almost gooned all over the place. Gojo awkwardly says that for him, the word beautiful is a sacred term reserved only for porcelain dolls and special things, and he refuses to waste the word on just anything. Marin finally accepts that Gojo is a world-class loser, but her train of thought is interrupted by the glorious scent of a nearby food stall. Marin immediately starts deep-throating some cheese balls like a professional, leaving Gojo wondering how she maintains that double-wide dump truck with such a trash diet. As they hit an overhead bridge, the vibe gets heavy, and for a second it looks like the simp is about to confess something to her, but then Marin gets emotional, thanking him for actually paying attention to her sussy game details and making her feel appreciated for once. She offers him a bite of her greasy cheese balls, but Gojo's virgin shield activates and he refuses, thinking this would result in an indirect kiss. Marin stares him down, wondering if he's judging her for being a gluttonous pig, but the simp stammers out a denial just to end the awkwardness. He then asks about the deadline, and Marin casually drops the bombshell that the event is in 2 weeks. Before the news can even sink in, she bolts for her train, leaving Gojo standing alone in the dark, wondering if he can sew fast enough to save his life. On his way home, Gojo's brain starts smoking because there is no way he can finish that outfit in 2 weeks without a literal miracle. He then enters the train, but his mind is filled with weird scenarios, all of which end up with him failing. He realizes that Marin has placed all her trust in him, so he has to do whatever it takes to make her happy. The pathetic loser tries to mental map the project, but the sheer pressure causes him to shake violently as if someone has inserted a metal rod up his rear side. Later that night, Gojo drags his weary soul home, where his grandfather is waiting at the door like a final boss. Kaoru spots the bags and demands to know where the loser has been. Gojo tries to be honest, explaining he was out buying materials for a friend's outfit, but then the old man spots a lady's stocking peeking out of the bag. Realizing that his loser grandson has transitioned into a cross-dressing degenerate, the old man's heart hits the eject button, and he collapses on the floor in utter shock. Later on, Gojo is at the hospital where his cousin, Miori, shows up looking like she's ready to plan a funeral. But Gojo assures her that Grandpa is fine, and his heart just took a temporary vacation from his chest. Soon after, Kaoru gets discharged and he looks at his grandson with a disgusting expression on his face. Miori insists that he stay at her place to recover, and Gojo also thinks is the best idea for now. He also promises to bring over the old man's belongings the next day, and everyone leaves the hospital. On the ride home, Gojo stares out the window like he's Tom Cruise in a Mission Impossible movie. He wonders how he's going to survive the deadline and his grandfather's disappointment. For the next few days, he doesn't show up at school, completely shutting himself in his pathetic house. When Marin finally meets him one morning, he's sitting in one corner like a dog who has just caught rabies. Seeing the idiot vibrating with stress, she asks if he needs any help, but he assures her that he'll be fine. Marin still believes she can cheer him up, so they finally exchange contacts, and she offers to prepare some home-cooked meals for him, but Gojo rejects that as well. The two walk down the hallway together, with Gojo still lost in thought about how he's going to complete the outfit in such a limited time. But then, Marin drops a tactical nuke on his sanity. She casually reminds him that midterms start next week. Now, the idiot has to juggle exam prep, dressmaking, and the potential cremation of his grandfather, almost causing him another panic attack. He clenches his fist in anger as if he's about to unleash a Mando Duke. But when Marin asks if he's dying, he puts on a brave face and pretends that everything's fine. Later that evening, Gojo's phone rings with a random tourist wanting a tour of the Hina doll shop. At first, he tries to grow a spine and says they're busy for 2 weeks, but the customer threatens to cancel him on Instagram. Terrified of a 1-star review, Gojo immediately folds and agrees to show him around the shop. He drops to his knees right after the call ends and begins sweating like Mia Khalifa after her 6th round. Gojo knows that he's dug himself into a very deep hole that he can't seem to get out of. For the next week, Gojo lives like a cracked-out zombie. He's sprinting to Miori's house to check on the old coot, rushing home to play tour guide for strangers, and then pulling all-nighters on Marin's outfit. Between the exams and the sewing, his social life is officially dead, and his brain is about 3 seconds away from permanent brain rot. The following week, their exams finally come to an end, and Marin yawns as if she's been hibernating for the past months. She spots Gojo in the corner and tries to talk to him, but then a lollipop-sucking girl distracts her, allowing the creep just enough time to scurry home like a rat. Later that night, Marin shows up at his house with a bag of pity noodles, but the place is so dark and silent she assumes he's already dead. She heads home, oblivious to the fact that inside, Gojo is rotting in a biohazard wasteland of trash, lying on the floor like a World War veteran on Omaha Beach. The room is so filthy that he has to cover his mouth with a cloth just so he doesn't suffocate. The loser is physically and mentally fried, but he's nowhere near to completing the dress. To make matters worse, he's haunted by a flashback where his grandfather explains that if you don't play with your tools every day, they'll stop working. As he marinates in his own self-pity, he starts to wonder if he's actually cut out for this life, or if he's just a worthless pile of genetic waste. He can't remember the last time he touched his brushes and wonders if he can make Hyena dolls like his grandfather. The situation only becomes worse when he remembers the time when his childhood friend called him a freak. He starts crying like a little girl, convinced that even a fart has more importance in this world than him. But then, Gojo remembers asking his grandfather why he continues making dolls even though he's old, and doesn't get to bang any humans anymore. Kaoru puts on a creepy smile and explains that the only reason he could push through the hard days was to satisfy his inner creativity. He then whips out an old photo album filled with smiling customers, mentioning that making people happy gets his ding-dong hard. Inspired by the thought of Marin's massive milk boxes and a high-quality fit, Gojo wipes the disgusting tears off his face and locks in. He pulls a legendary all-nighter, sewing through the pain and the tears like a man possessed by a tailoring demon. When the sun finally comes up, Gojo has dark circles the size of black holes and he can barely keep awake. It's the day before the event, and Marin is absolutely floored that the idiot actually managed to finish the outfit so quickly. Gojo tells her she can go prepare for the event while he catches some sleep, but she horrifies by revealing that she never planned on going to this particular event in the first place. She was actually waiting for the outfit before buying tickets to an event. Hearing this, the stupid idiot collapses like a sack of potatoes, relieved he met a deadline that didn't actually exist. Seeing his pathetic condition, Marin drops to her knees and begins crying as if his grandfather passed away. She realizes that he went through a lot of trouble, and apologizes for not checking on his mental health, but Gojo tells her it's his fault as well for hiding his situation. To break the awkward tension, he suggests she finally put the outfit on so he can refine it. Marin hesitates for a second because Gojo looks like someone gooned on him, but he tells her to just get in the damn dress. Overwhelmed by his passion for her, she promises to wear it until it rots off her body. Gojo starts smiling like a creep, and Marin stares at his twisted face, realizing this is the first time she's seen the loser actually look happy instead of constipated. After some prep, the fabric nerd helps her apply makeup, treating her face like one of his porcelain dolls. Then, Marin starts unboxing her biological treasures to slide into the new fit while Gojo awkwardly waits outside. When he finally gets the green light to look, Gojo's flaccid pole immediately turns rock solid, as Marin looks exactly like the hot video game character, Shizuku. Blushing like a ripe tomato, she asks if she looks good, to which the weirdo excitedly claims he would rub his ding-dong all over her. He then asks if she feels comfortable in the fit, and she admits the dress is a masterpiece, but the sleeves are a bit tight, which makes it hard to move. Upon hearing this, Gojo realizes that unlike his silent porcelain dolls, real women actually have a skeleton and need to move their limbs to function. To prove her point, Marin vigorously bounces her massive melons, praising him for giving them the perfect amount of support and jiggle room. This almost ruptures his sausage, but then she demands a high-res photo shoot. Gojo's first few shots are a total flop because Marin looks too happy and wholesome. He tells her she needs to unleash her inner filth queen and look drenched, just like the character in the R-rated game. The dumb blonde loves the idea but struggles to stop giggling because she's too excited with her new dress. After a fair bit of messing around, she eventually channels her inner gothic degenerate and hits a few poses that would make a priest quit his job. She squats on the floor like a frog, and Gojo continues clicking pictures, despite his missile on the verge of taking off. They spend the next hour playing dress-up and striking weird poses until Marin finally gets tired. She then scrolls through the pictures and loves them so much that she immediately sets up an OnlyFans account to start her career as a professional thirst trap. After posting some content, she announces that she is confident enough to attend tomorrow's event and invites Gojo to come along. Although the creep hasn't had proper sleep in weeks, and his dark circles make him look like a cosplay character himself, he decides to attend anyway. The next day, Marin struts into the venue full of confidence while Gojo follows her, dressed like a janitor. She's absolutely buzzing at the sight of so many geeks living their best lives. But the loser is having a total internal meltdown because the floor is crawling with hotties in dental floss outfits. When Marin asks what's wrong, Gojo reveals that he feels uncomfortable as all the people are staring at him like he started COVID-19. Marin tries to cheer him by claiming that everyone is probably looking at her pretty dress, but Gojo is certain they're just making fun of him for looking like a homeless person. Trying to cheer him up, Marin gives her twin turbos a violent shake, but the sheer physics of the jiggle send him into an even deeper state of shock. They then head to the main area to explore, but are soon hunted down by a Discord mod cameraman who wants to document Marine's assets. It turns out he actually recognized her Shizuku costume and is a big fan of her. Marine also becomes hyped that someone finally recognized her and starts giving different poses while Gojo stands aside like a bullied outcast. She also takes a selfie with her, and when the fat Chungus catches the scent of her smelly armpits, his Coctopus Prime almost transforms. Before long, a whole horde of thirsty photographers swarm her, and Marin handles the attention like she was born for it. Gojo, on the other hand, takes a look around and realizes how everyone is confident, despite being dressed as freaks. Some men are dressed as women, while others as binary characters, but they still flaunt their assets without a pang of insecurity. He also watches Marin having the peak experience of her life, realizing that his blood, sweat, and tears actually built this moment. But as hours pass, a wave of post-nut-type clarity hits him. He realizes that the only reason Marin was close to him for all these weeks is because of the dress. Since he has already completed it now, he wonders if Marin will discard him like a wet tissue paper. Gojo starts recalling all the time spent with her, and this makes him really emotional. But just as he's about to have a mental breakdown, she notices him and gives him a creepy wide smile that makes her look like a vampire. She then comes charging at him, and the loser believes she's about to run into his arms. But Marin drops to her knees and reveals that she's actually in trouble. It turns out she wore double push-up covers to enlarge her melons and match the aesthetics of Suzuku. But the plan has backfired and now her juggernauts are trying to pop out. To make things worse, the dress is made from thick fabric, leaving her feeling overheated and uncomfortable. Gojo starts blaming himself once again, as it was his choice to pick this particular fabric. They then scramble into a shady emergency exit to cool down. Gojo hands her a cooling patch to mop the sweat off her airbags, but even it doesn't help her much. Scared that she will pass out due to the heat, she demands that he unzip her dress from the back. Gojo expectedly hesitates, but seeing her on the verge of a heat stroke, he slowly cracks the seal on her outfit, giving her skin some air. Marin then lets out a moan so loud it sounds like a backroom audition for newcomers. As Gojo reluctantly wipes the sweat off her back, Marin starts whimpering like someone's digging inside her for gold, and Gojo begs her to lower the volume before the cops show up. But she doesn't seem to care and even lifts her skirt to give her rainforest some ventilation. Gojo's face turns red like a tomato, but she assures him that she's wearing actual shorts down there. He then promises that he'll make some more adjustments to the dress so it's more comfortable for her the next time. Before they head home, Marin decides that she isn't done being the center of attention. Despite being a sweaty mess, she insists on heading back to the plaza for one last photo shoot, and the poor guy simply follows like a loyal servant. Back at the plaza, Marin tracks down a female photographer for one last round of thirst traps. But right as the shutter clicks, a tactical gust of wind lifts her skirt, capturing the full view. The camera woman becomes flustered and offers to delete the evidence, but Marin doesn't seem to give a frick about that. On the train ride home, Marin thanks Gojo for all his hard work, but he simply sits there feeling depressed because he thinks their time together is coming to an end. He's convinced she's done with him now that the dress is finished, but to his utter surprise, Marin excitedly reveals that she's planning several more outfits, which puts a goofy, pathetic smile on his face. When she calls him out for grinning like a lunatic, he stammers that he's just excited to keep being her personal servant. Marin mentions she's going to buy him a mannequin, so he doesn't have to deal with her cannons every time he measures a fit. She then logs onto her Temu account and shows him some designs, but he's already half asleep after all the late-nighters he pulled to complete her dress. The blonde continues to ramble like a woke binary Karen, but Gojo hears none of it. As he's about to fall asleep, he tells Marin that she's beautiful, and this leaves her speechless as she knows how important that word is to him. Marin realizes that he has started liking her and becomes really moist down there. Later on, the two head back to Gojo's place to scrub the filth off Marin's clothes. She tries washing the wig herself and Gojo guides her by reading an instruction manual he found on Craigslist. She manages to wipe the stains clean and starts bragging about how good of a cleaner she is. But when she turns around and sees Gojo so passionate about his craft, her ovaries almost explode. Now, Marin starts wondering if she's also falling in love with his basement tailor. On the other hand, Miori is driving Grandpa home after the old man has recovered from his heart condition. She makes him understand that it is very normal for miserable teenagers like Gojo to use women's stockings as gooning inspiration. Kaoru is relieved to hear this, but the moment he enters the house, he sees Gojo standing there with a revealing black dress. Then, the juicy Marin also pops up and greets him, causing the old man to almost have another heart attack. Gojo quickly helps him up and assures him that he hasn't drilled her yet, and that they were just practicing for the next cosplay event. The old man finally believes him and also apologizes for acting like a freak moments ago. Gojo then shows him the outfit he crafted, and Kaoru praises him for his brilliant work. As the two inspect and sniff the outfit, Marin starts vibrating with excitement. She finds it weirdly hot that he's a family man and starts mentally planning their wedding and future degenerate kids. But before she can say anything, her stomach lets out a loud roar like a chainsaw. Grandpa realizes that the girl is hungry, so he invites her to stay over for dinner, and she happily agrees to it. Later on, Gojo lays several dishes on the table and Marin starts devouring them like it's her last meal. She absolutely loves the food, and Gojo mentions that he learned to cook after his parents passed away years ago. Marin reveals that she lives alone as well, as her mom died due to an illness and her loser dad left her alone to work abroad. They then bond over their shared trauma, and Marin wonders if she can finally fill her empty life with Gojo's special sauce. Hearing her tragic life story, Kaoru asks if she's getting any real nutrients, but Marin swears she's eating like a queen every day. She then pulls out her phone to show off a photo of an extremely greasy dish, claiming it's healthy. Gojo stares at her in shock, wondering how she doesn't get fat with a diet of pure junk, but Marin insists that she consumes milk and yogurt every day, which cancels out the greasy stuff. Upon hearing this, Kaoru realizes she might die of clogged arteries at any moment, so he insists that she join them for dinner more regularly. Gojo also gives her the approval, and she excitedly agrees to the offer like a homeless person. Later on, as Gojo walks her to the station, he apologizes for keeping her this late, but she assures him that she enjoyed every moment. They soon reach the station, where Marin appears sad for a moment, but then she waves him goodbye and scurries away like a New York rat. Once alone on the train, Marin's brain starts to overheat as she wonders why her chest is vibrating. When Gojo told his grandpa they hadn't gotten intimate, she felt embarrassed, but now she's imagining exactly how his clumsy fingers would handle her gear. She's now convinced she's in love, and starts having wild fantasies about being drilled like an old sidewalk. A few days later, a mysterious girl with a backpack is sprinting through Tokyo like she's late for a backroom audition. It soon starts raining heavily, so the girl shelters herself near a house, which turns out to be Gojo's. Just then, Kaoru spots her, and assuming she's just another one of Gojo's side chicks, he invites her in. When Gojo finally arrives home from school, his grandpa tells him a friend is waiting to see him, and heads out, leaving the freak alone. But this only makes him paranoid because he's a caveman with no other friends than Marin. He starts imagining worst-case scenarios, convinced a burglar has broken in to steal his precious fabric and sniff his threads. With trembling hands, he creeps toward the bathroom and flings the door open, only to find a stranger taking a shower completely exposed from top to bottom. The girl gets so stunned that she loses her footing and lands in an awkward position with her legs spread out, giving Gojo a front row ticket to her forbidden geography. The sight of her hairless plot triggers a weird flashback. He remembers asking Grandpa Kaoru why Hina dolls are completely bald down south, and the old man explained they're assembled in pieces like a Lego set. Because of that, they're slippery smooth, exactly like the girl currently doing a split on his bathroom floor. Once the screaming stops, Gojo sits her down and apologizes for getting a high-definition view of her rainforest. The girl then introduces herself as Sajuna, and claims to be a student from a nearby school. When she demands to know who's been sewing gear for girls, the idiot assumes she's talking about Hina dolls and drags her to his grandpa's collection to show off his wood. Sajuna pretends to care about the dolls for 2 seconds, but quickly gets bored and asks when he's going to show her the real stuff. She mentions that she has no interest in these miniature weird dolls and wants to see the elite craftsmanship. Gojo tries to play it cool, saying this is a doll shop, not a boutique, but then she whips out a photo of Marin's outfit. She demands a custom fit for herself, but Gojo says he doesn't take personal orders. Refusing to take no for an answer, the stubborn girl threatens to expose how he walked in on her earlier in the shower. Gojo realizes that he's trapped, so he surrenders to the blackmail and agrees to do whatever he says. He also learns that Sajuna is not just some ordinary girl, but a famous cosplayer who's responsible for thousands of boys' goon sessions every night. Gojo is still confused about how she tracked his house, to which Sajuna casually admits she tracked Marin's thirst trap post on OnlyFans and tailed them like a professional creep. She first saw them at the cosplay event and tailed him all the way home like a samurai. Gojo is so creeped out by the entire situation that he texts Marin, and she shows up there just a few minutes later. She is over the moon to see her idol for the first time and starts geeking over her like a little girl. Sajuna gets straight to the topic and demands that Gojo make a Shion outfit for her, which is a skimpy costume for magical girls. Marin nearly has an aneurysm from excitement and starts rattling off every detail about the character's curvaceous body. Sajuna is genuinely impressed by how knowledgeable Marine is, as Gojo reveals that she's a huge anime fan, and even has Shion keychains dangling off her bags. Sajuna wonders why the blonde hasn't cosplayed her yet, but Marine admits she has no interest in playing an innocent character with a flat chest. Plus, her tall height and thick thighs would make the petite character look like a deformed Pokemon. Upon hearing this, Sajuna is impressed as she realizes that Maran is a cosplayer with ethics. She then asks for Gojo's contact details so she can send him information about her fit and measurements. Sajuna also bluntly asks what their relationship is, to which a freaked-out Gojo swears that they're just friends before running out of the room. But seeing Marin vibrating with hormonal energy, she deduces that there's more to the story. Marin then asks if she'd like to do a cosplay collaboration to show off their milk tanks, but Sajuna angrily rejects the offer. When Gojo returns, he finds Marin still trying to convince Sajuna for that collaboration. They also debate over which cosplay format is the ultimate goon bait in this economy. Sajuna makes it clear that she's a lone wolf who plans to rent a private studio to keep her solo career going. But Marin, who's shaking with excitement, insists that if they join forces, they'll have every boy in the city creaming their pants. Sajuna is still unconvinced, but when Marin offers to pay half the studio rent, she folds like a cheap lawn chair. She realizes that this way, she can save 50% cash to buy high-end vibration devices. Even though he's broke, Gojo offers to chip in too, hoping for a chance to see Sajuna's rice cakes again. Once the deal is sealed, Marin celebrates by jumping on a table, while Gojo promises to watch some anime so he can nail all the references. Sajuna tells him he's overthinking it, and that a few pictures of the characters are plenty, but the freak insists he needs deep insight. He claims that to finish Marin's last outfit, he had to watch an entire series just to understand the erotic vibes of the character. Gojo starts panicking when he can't find the anime on the Pirate Bay, so Marin decides to do a little charity work and lends him a video player. But the freak's excitement dies instantly when she reveals that this particular anime has over 100 episodes, with each one being an hour long. The following day, Gojo informs his grandfather that he is going to Marin's house to bring a video player. The old man is finally relieved that he'll get to massage his ding-dong in peace. Before leaving, Kaoru decides to check how much Gojo's painting skills have improved, and he is shocked to see the kid learning faster than he expected. Kaoru admits that Gojo used to have wonky lines, but lately they are much more refined. Kaoru jokingly tells him that hanging out with Marin has been beneficial for his craft. However, he tells Gojo that in order to become a skilled craftsman, he must not put his focus only on Hina dolls. A few hours later, Gojo reaches Marin's apartment, donning his classic peasant costume, and rings the doorbell. She suddenly opens the door in a skimpy lingerie and explains that she overslept, but Gojo doesn't hear a word as he's busy staring at her bowling balls. Seeing him so stunned, she realizes something is wrong and quickly checks the mirror. The dumb bimbo eventually comes to the conclusion that she startled Gojo because she forgot her contact lenses. A few moments later, she re-emerges with a more decent look and finally invites the creep into her cave. Gojo hands her some pudding like she's homeless, but she's so sleepy that she barely thanks him for it. Gojo, meanwhile, is still picturing her in the skimpy dress and remains frozen on the door. He pretends that he's in a hurry and wants to leave with the video player immediately, but Marin insists that they watch a few episodes of the anime together. She then takes him to his bedroom, which looks like a set from a Pornhub video shoot. It is filled with luscious dolls, curvy posters, and other devices, which turns Gojo's limp cucumber into a metal rebar. Eventually, the two sit on a comfy couch and start binge-watching the anime. Gojo stays locked in, taking notes on the characters like a total nerd, while Marin keeps yapping non-stop. But in the middle of her rambling, she realizes that she's actually on a date with the guy she wants to mount. Marin then takes a careful glance at Gojo, who is completely oblivious to the fact that the girl next to him is leaking gravy just from his presence. Marin realizes that she's head over heels for this loser, and tries to keep her hormones from hitting the ceiling. But before she can make a move, her stomach starts gurgling, so Gojo suggests they go grab some fast food. However, Marin offers to cook food for both of them. The freak gets excited to eat a free meal, but when he remembers that Marin eats like a wild animal, he starts getting paranoid. Gojo even tries to take over kitchen duties, but she is determined to cook the meal by herself. A while later, Marin puts on an apron while completely forgetting to put on a melon cover underneath it. She's confident that Gojo didn't see her cocomelons, but the man is fighting for his life after seeing them uncensored. Marin, meanwhile, decides to prepare the classic rice and agassiz combo. She chops some onions with the utmost precision and carefully fries the rice to make sure everything is on point. Marin then sneaks a taste and loves it. But once it hits the plate, the final product looks like something a stray dog regurgitated after a rough night. Since the dish is an absolute nightmare, Marin tells Gojo to toss it in the trash, but he chows down and reluctantly says it tastes incredible. She thinks he's doing all this to smell her slimy undies, but Gojo assures her that this is the best food he's had in the last hour. Later, the two dive back into the anime, but the second an emotional scene hits, Gojo starts crying like a little girl. Marin finds it strangely cute instead of pathetic, and even hands him a tissue to mop his disgusting tears. That evening, when he reaches home, Gojo and Sajuna discuss the concept for her new cosplay outfit. The girl is impressed by the amount of homework Gojo does, and she immediately offers to send him money and materials needed for the job. However, Gojo tells her to wait until he calculates the exact cost of the materials. As they chat, the freak inquires if she wants help with her hair and makeup, but Sajuna finds this weird and tells Gojo that she can do it on her own. With genuine curiosity, Gojo asks who she manages the depth in her eyes during photo shoots. Without hesitation, the uptight girl immediately turns on her video and shows him how to use a stupid tape. Seeing this, Gojo's mind drifts over to Marin, who would love to have eyelid tape for her makeup. When Sajuna mocks him for being an amateur makeup artist, Gojo says that it was his first ever cosplay event. Hearing this, Sajuna finally understands that she is in the presence of greatness. Sajuna realizes that since it was his first attempt, the photos were taken on an iPhone. For the first time, the girl offers kindness by allowing Gojo to use her high-grade camera to take pictures. After hanging up, Gojo pings Marin to invite her to the practice shoot. She's down immediately, already imagining that Sajuna's sister must be some cute, tiny sweetheart. But when they arrive at the said location, they're shocked to see a monstrosity of a girl, which is Shinju. Gojo's mind almost malfunctions as he cannot comprehend how someone can have bigger cannons than his beloved Marin. Marin then goes through the collection of photos that Shinju snapped and absolutely loves it. She starts glazing her work, saying she's far better than the Dumbo Gojo who can't even hold his phone straight. Sajuna adds further praise by revealing that her sister is the real mastermind, who handles everything from her social media account to her stage name, which keeps the internet thirsty. The humble Shinju claims that she just wanted to show off her sister's potential when she created the page, but it soon went viral and attracted all the gooners. They even started flooding her DMs with special requests, but Shinju panicked and left them all on red. While Sajuna claims she doesn't give a toss about public opinion, Shinju admits that watching the follower count rise gives her a naughty little rush. Marin smiles as she points out how deeply Shinju adores her sister, and the comment instantly makes Sajuna blush with embarrassment. As the conversation drags on, Shinju whips out her dad's heavy-duty camera, saying that photography runs in the family. Gojo, who is a tech-illiterate caveman, asks why it's better than a basic phone, and Shinju explains that a real lens delivers a wetter, crisper finish and lets her control the mood of the shots perfectly. Noticing how much the girl is vibrating with excitement, Marin asks the thick camera woman if she's ever thought about stepping in front of the lens to show off her own assets. But Shinju play it cool, claiming she's satisfied just being the one behind the lens watching her sister perform. Marin then checks the camera and is stunned by how high definition everything looks. She screams that she needs one immediately, so the simp Gojo starts checking prices on Alibaba. However, he nearly chokes on his own spit when he learns that the body alone costs more than his entire life savings, and that's not even counting the lenses you have to attach to it. Sajuna adds that the extra gear jacks the price up even higher, officially crushing Gojo's dreams of becoming a high-end stalker. Marin jokes they'll just have to stick to their phones until she finds a sugar daddy, while Sajuna advises them to stay practical and not go broke for a hobby. As they chat, Sajuna suggests checking out some studios and proposes meeting at the train station that weekend. When the day comes, they arrive at an old, abandoned hospital turned into a studio. Marin and Shinju race inside like a bunch of rugrats, while Sajuna lags behind, questioning if this is the right thing to do. Gojo mentions that the creepy vibe is perfect for scenes from the anime, and Sajuna agrees, who is still surprised at the fact that he watched the entire show. A few moments later, Marin and Shinju call out from inside, and as Gojo heads in, he notices Sajuna frozen at the entrance. He asks if the place creeps her out, but the girl brushes it off and marches in like Stalin's army. Upstairs, Marin worries the hallways might be too dark, but Shinju assures her the flash will handle it. She then dives into explaining camera settings, and Marin eagerly joins the geek out session. Noticing that it might rain anytime soon, they suggest wrapping up before it pours. However, as the downpour starts, Gojo finds Sajuna bundled in a corner and asks if she'd rather wait at the entrance. Sajuna insists she's fine and wants to push through for her cosplay. Confused by this response, Gojo asks why she's forcing herself, but Sajuna turns the question back at him, asking if he has any dreams. Gojo shares his goal of becoming a Hina doll craftsman, and Sajuna compliments him for being honest with her. Just then, she quietly admits that she once dreamed of being a magical girl. Sajuna explains she was obsessed with magical girls as a kid, but grew up realizing they weren't real. A few years later, she discovered she could buy their costumes, and even though Sajuna's first cosplay was a mess, it made her incredibly happy. Ever since that day, she decided to chase that dream her own way. When Gojo asks why she picked him to make such a meaningful costume, Sajuna confesses she felt jealous seeing Marin's photos in his work. Something about the outfit struck her instantly, like it was love at first sight. This triggers a memory for Gojo of seeing his grandpa's Hina dolls as a kid. He'd called them the most beautiful things ever, and Kaoru explained they were designed to catch eyes and spark that instant connection. That moment set Gojo on his path to follow his grandfather's craft. Overwhelmed with emotions, Gojo starts crying like a girl, which shocks Sajuna. He then grabs her hand and thanks Sajuna for the inspiration she just gave him. However, since Sajuna goes to an all-girls school, she cannot handle the sudden physical contact with men and loses control. A few days later, after finishing their final exams, Marin suggests a beach trip to Gojo. Before the simp can even give alternatives, he's standing on the sand, asking if this is for a cosplay shoot. However, Marin simply tells him that it's summer and urges him to have a good time. Hearing this, Gojo smiles in agreement, as he has always been an uptight guy. While Marin munches on a burger, she asks Gojo to feed her some fries. But before he can, a bird dives in and snatches her burger. They try moving spots, but the bird keeps stalking them. Gojo tosses the fries in another direction to distract it, and they run forward, guarding their last burger like it's Bitcoin. Later, they sit to share Gojo's burger and watch the waves peacefully. Moments later, Marin sprints toward the water to cool off, but she ends up flashing her undies as she splashes around like a maniac. She screams for Gojo to join her, so he awkwardly rolls up his pants and waddles in like a Paralympic athlete trying to find his balance. The second his toes hit the wet sand, Gojo starts freaking out, and Marin teases him, asking if it's first time on the beach. Gojo shamefully admits that it is, explaining he was too busy poking dolls his whole life to ever get wet in public. He finally realizes why his old man wanted him to get out of the house and see some actual scenery. Totally obsessed with his innocent energy, Marin promises to drag him to plenty of private spots this summer. When she makes it clear it'll be just the two of them, Gojo gets shy, but he eventually agrees, just so he can get a chance to rest on her airbags. Marin then runs off to grab some drinks, and when she looks back, she sees Gojo lost in his thoughts like he just smoked an entire bong. She decides to snap a picture of him to capture the cute moment, but the idiot ends up tripping and faceplants himself. Once the vacation ends, Gojo and Marin are back in his room, digging through scraps for their next project. Out of nowhere, Marin flashes her skirt like a paid worker from Bangkok, almost giving him a heart attack. She then starts teasing him about the thirst trap photo she texted him the night before, mocking him for leaving her on red. Once the hormones settle, Marin helps paint a black jewel for her costume, grinning about finally being useful. The comment hits Gojo right in the feels, reminding him of the first time a girl actually needed his services, but the piece is short-lived. Marin gets too hyped and starts stripping down right in front of him. Gojo covers his eyes like a drama queen, but Marin suddenly realizes she's let her massive headlights fly free and scrambles to find a blanket to hide the goods. Later, Sajuna slips into her costume and can't stop admiring Gojo's craftsmanship. When he asks if anything needs fixing, Sajuna says the skirt could use more fluff but plans to toss a tutu underneath. On the other hand, Marin watches this from a distance, wishing she knew enough about tailoring and photography. She wants to give Gojo advice like a pro, but her attempts at feedback sound like a total rookie. Just then, Gojo offers to do Marin's makeup and wig, and Sajuna chimes in with tips to match the character's vibe. He then pulls out some tape showing how to tweak eyelids for that filthy anime look, while Marin gets amped up like always. On the other hand, Sajuna helps him extract the tape in the right amount, and when Marin checks the mirror, she's blown away by her own beauty. The blonde bounces up and down while smacking Gojo's arm in excitement, already pumped up for the photo shoot. Unfortunately for them, rain starts pouring outside and Marin's mood is ruined. While they wonder what to do, Sajuna points out that the gloomy weather actually fits their character's edgy feel. She gives Marin's costume a green light, and the blonde gushes about how much she loves both their characters, begging for a photo together. Luckily this time, Sajuna lets her guard down and agrees to take a picture, which gets uploaded to OnlyFans immediately. Meanwhile, they notice Gojo and Shinju are taking forever to show up. When the door finally opens, Marin and Sajuna's mouths drop. It is revealed that after Sajuna's fainted the day before, they stopped the conversation early and headed to the station. Gojo realized something was off and apologized for not realizing it earlier, but Sajuna brushed it off, saying she was fine. On the other hand, Marin had other plans and bailed, leaving Gojo with the Sajuna and Shinju. Meanwhile, Shinju mentions she wants to check out some shops at the station, so Sajuna heads off, leaving them alone. On the way, Gojo inquires if Shinju secretly wanted to cosplay as well, wondering if her sister was the one clock-blocking her. Hearing this, the poor girl feels embarrassed, and Gojo quickly apologizes for being too direct. Just as he walks away, Shinju stops him and claims that she wants to cosplay a mysterious character. She reveals that since Sajuna has a stick figure, she might get jealous of her thick body. However, Gojo assures her that cosplaying is not about jealousy. It's about expressing your true desires without any judgment. Gojo is extremely supportive of Shinju, and he encourages her to try whatever outfit she wants. Finally, she claims that she wants to cosplay a character from the same anime as Marin and Sajuna. Gojo wanted to measure her juggernauts so badly, but this creep was proven wrong when she picked a male character called Suma. Despite this, Gojo patiently listens to her desires, and he arranges a secret photo shoot. A few moments later, they head back home, where Gojo hands her a school uniform, which looks awfully similar to the one from the anime. As Shinju tries it on, the freak leaves the room to give her some privacy. When he goes inside the room, Gojo notices that the buttons on her shirt are about to explode into the stratosphere. He then helps Shinju to fix her shirt and wonders how Hina dolls never deal with giant airbags, since they wear kimonos. This sparks an idea in Gojo's mind, and he decides to fold her oranges. Trying to come up with a solution, Gojo notices that her body is extremely feminine, a stark contrast to the character she's trying to cosplay. However, he does a quick Google search and comes up with a solution. Using a bee holder. They immediately look it up on Amazon and are shocked to see how dirt cheap it is. Since the humongous melon problem is solved, Gojo starts taking her measurements. After a couple of days, they meet, again to finalize the wig, where Shinju notices how grounded Gojo is. The freak admits that inside he is actually scared of messing up, which makes Shinju feel better. As they chat, Gojo reveals that there's a student in his class who is really his ideal person, and even though she seems perfect from the outside, she is struggling in her own way. Gojo calls her a total sweetheart, but then quickly reverts to his usual socially awkward self. He gets all philosophical, explaining that everyone has their own hidden baggage, even the girls who look confident and have their lives under control. They then start working on the wig and thick layers of makeup for the big reveal. After a while, Marin and Sajuna finally get a look at Shinju's final form, and their jaws hit the floor. The girl looks so incredible that she's jumping with joy, and her sister also showers her with praise. The group then snaps several photos like they're in a casting couch audition. Shinju forces them into some cringe anime poses, but Sajuna becomes creeped out by the spooky abandoned building. Her fear evaporates the second she sees Marin totally nailing her character. She cannot fathom how a girl with such massive melons can be so versatile and acrobatic. The vibe shifts when Marin playfully calls Sajuna an adorable little cardboard box. Sajuna knows that the blonde is a total creep, but she can't deny that she's the funniest girl she has come across. After the money shots are done, Sajuna pulls Gojo into a corner to thank him for looking out for Shinju. She knows he secretly covered the cost for her sister's thirsty makeover and swears she'll pay him back every cent. She admits she feels like a failure of a big sister for not realizing Shinju wanted to join the freak show herself. Gojo just shrugs it off, saying it's hard to be honest about what makes you throb with passion. His words hit a nerve, and Sajuna realizes this loser is actually a total sweetheart. Meanwhile, Marin is still hamming it up, letting her juggernauts do most of the acting. Shinju is bouncing like a kid when she nails the perfect photo. But then Marin's melon cover suddenly calls it a day, revealing her secret plots to enlighten everyone. A few hours later, the Cosplay sisters are flipping through the shots, totally blown away by how Marin absolutely slayed the look. Sajuna's eyes linger on one particular photo, and it hits her that her feelings might not just be about Gojo's awesome costume work. Shinju catches her sister's intense gaze and wonders if she hates her photos. However, Sajuna admits that she's kinda envious because Shinju rocked a character she'd never have the guts to try herself. The gigantic melon bearer is shocked to hear this from her older sister. However, she returns the favor by complimenting Sajuna in all of her cosplays. Hearing this, Sajuna claims that she only picks characters she knows she cannot fail in. This reminds Shinju of what Gojo once said, that everyone has their own struggles. So Shinju tells her older sister that she plans to get a job when she's older and save up to cosplay even more. Sajuna gets excited to hear that from her sister and says she's looking forward to it. Later, at home, Gojo's flipping through the pics when Marin calls, practically bursting with excitement over how awesome they turned out. She raves about his makeup skills and asks if Shinju was rocking his uniform. When he confirms they worked on it together, Marin's brain screeches to a halt, picturing him alone with a girl who's thicker than her. Fast forward a bit, summer break starts, and Gojo's hyped to tinker with his dolls in Marin's next cosplay, which is a fierce character named Veronica. They would often watch anime together like weebs. Marin was drooling over Veronica's golden vibe, while Gojo was stressed about matching her skin tone. Now he knocks out the costume in no time since it's pretty basic. Marin shows up at his place, looking like she just got back from a tropical vacation, explaining she went ham with body foundation. She asks to hit the shower, so Gojo waits outside, clutching some of his clothes for her to borrow. When she steps out, refreshed and in his shirt, Gojo's brain melts, as she even smells like his shampoo. Marin shows off her bold cosplay makeup, complete with dramatic mascara and chunky jewelry. Gojo spots something poking out of her bag, and Marin pulls out some stick-on wallpaper for switching up photoshoot backgrounds. She's still missing fake fangs for the look, so Gojo hands her some he crafted from press-on nails. She pops them in, and he's blown away by how legit they look. Then out of nowhere, Marin lifts her shirt to touch up her foundation, and Gojo sees way more than he was ready for. His face goes nuclear, and Marin, thinking he's just too warm, bolts for water but slips and bangs her head, pausing cosplay plans for the day. A few days later, Marin drags Gojo shopping, but this time it's all about him. She asks Gojo what his style is, but he just shrugs like an idiot. Marin picks a shirt and shoves him toward the fitting room. A store clerk sees her waiting and assumes her boyfriend might be dashing. But when Gojo steps out looking bang average, the guy thinks she's probably after his massive sausage. Marin keeps tossing him shirts, hyping each one like he's a model even though Gojo's hating every second. She then grabs a simple tee for herself, hoping they can twin, and looks amazing in it. Later, they hit up a ramen spot and keep browsing, but Gojo doesn't spend a dime. Marin then abruptly says she wants to do the Veronica cosplay now that she's healed, but Gojo suggests she handle it solo. Upon hearing this, she is caught off guard, wondering if the freak is trying to dump her, but he blurts out that seeing her in that skimpy outfit again might actually cause his pants to disintegrate. Marin finally understands his situation and playfully teases him for being a wimp. She promises to pick a safer and more modest character for public, but whispers that she'll still rock the Veronica look just for him at home, so his hard labor doesn't go to waste. After this, the two continue strolling around with their cheeks red like ripe tomatoes. Marin suddenly tugs him close and teases that she'll send him some steamy images tonight in her new costume. Gojo almost leaks in his pants, but Marin just laughs it off, clearly enjoying how easy it is to bust his nuts. One day, the two are roaming about the streets, but it's so hot that Marin is dripping with sweat. Gojo looks at her with thirsty eyes, hoping he can lick her, but there's too many people around and the risk is not worth it. To beat the heat, she takes him to a comic book cafe, which apparently has good food and a comfortable place to rest. As soon as they enter one of the rooms, Marin starts stretching like she's doing yoga, and this expectedly makes the loser uncomfortable. Seeing how cramped the booth is and how their bodies are brushing against each other, Gojo asks if comic stores are always like this. But Marin says it's the perfect place to unwind on a summer day. She then grabs the menu and Gojo almost pukes when he sees the lineup of greasy snacks. He warns her that the first bite will taste like heaven, and the second will take them there, so she reluctantly puts it down. Marin then pulls out a manga about a succubus who's head over heels for the main guy. She also keeps on reiterating how much she loves the MC's pigtail style, and dreams of cosplaying her one day. Gojo notices this character's outfit covers more skin than Veronica's, but Marin drops a bombshell and says she might skip it. When he asks why, she blushes and admits she doesn't think she's pure enough to pull off the cute pigtail look. Gojo knows she's lost her purity from years of being pounded, but he still encourages her to at least try, believing she'll look amazing in it. Touched by his simp-tier encouragement, her cheeks turn red and she agrees to do it just for him. Gojo then shifts the topic and asks what the hell a succubus is in the first place. Marin casually explains that they are dream demons who initially seduce men but then drain their white sauce and unalive them brutally. Upon hearing this, Gojo looks terrified, but she shows him a manga page where the demon is actually a total ditz who just wants to cuddle and falls asleep like a moron. In another scene, she gets distracted by candy just so the guy can get some work done, making Gojo realize it's more of a wholesome freak show than a horror story. By this time, Marin has gotten really hungry, so she bolts out to grab some greasy food, leaving Gojo alone with the research material. He starts flipping through the pages, but gets frustrated because the art is so low budget and basic. He can barely make out the costume details, let alone the edgy embroidery. Gojo has worked with vague references before, but trying to design a masterpiece from these chicken scratches is giving him a massive headache. Later, Gojo suggests hitting up a bookstore to find some higher resolution plot references. Marin becomes excited as usual and teases him for being drawn to the succubus lore this quickly. On the way, Gojo comes across a fancy cloth store and ends up buying a jinbei. As soon as he reaches home, he shows it off to his old man, feeling like a Yakuza member now that he's leveled up his style. A few days later, he finally finishes stitching together the new costume, and Marin pings him to confirm she's booked a nearby studio for their upcoming sweaty photoshoot. Soon after, they meet at the said location, and although the place looks like a crime scene, they proceed towards their room. Marin then begins bouncing on the bed, and everything seems jolly fine until they spot a curvy, pickle-shaped massager, sitting on the nightstand. The realization hits Gojo like a truck, and he realizes that they are not in a studio, but in a low-rent love hotel. He asks why she dragged him here, and Marin admits that she hastily selected the place and only realized her mistake when the payment was done. She also insists that it's quite spacious and looks like a room from the actual manga, so they should be fine. Gojo tries to act like a professional, telling himself it's just a workspace, but seeing a vibrating cucumber almost gives him an aneurysm. He spots a dessert menu and asks if they can order snacks, but when Marin reaches for the phone, he stops her, realizing that calling room service in a place like this is basically an invitation for a third participant. They agree the whole situation is a massive fail, but since the room is paid for, Marin decides to strip down and slide into the costume. Gojo waits outside and nervously browses on the TV, but he gets a jump scare when Johnny Sins pops out of nowhere in his astronaut costume. Just then, Marin finally steps out in her new costume, and seeing her dressed like a naughty demon, Gojo almost thrusts the vibrator up her rear side. She is absolutely thrilled by the intricate details on the fit and compliments him, but Gojo is still not satisfied and believes he can do better. However, Marin claims that the best part of cosplay is making things unique. She believes that Gojo has done a wonderful job, and he doesn't have to make any adjustments to the costume. Then, out of nowhere, she brings up a silly rumor that if one keeps a rubber protection in their wallet, they'll soon receive a lot of cash. Gojo's face starts turning red as if he's just been deep friend, but Marin grabs a pelvic poncho placed on the nightstand and forces him to shove it down his wallet. After this, they finally get down to business and Gojo does her makeup and wig like a seasoned artist. He also puts a creepy tail and some vampire ears on her to make her look more like a succubus. Once everything's in place, they begin the photo shoot, and Marin gives different poses on bed, the couch, and even with some juicy chocolates. Next, they get bored and decide to try a lullaby scene, but the vibe doesn't feel right. Gojo suggests a first-person angle, so he lays flat on the bed and tells Marin to mount on him for the shot. She's worried her thick cakes might crush him, but he assures her that his lever will cushion the impact. Marin then hovers over him and takes the perfect picture, but their moment is ruined when the next-door neighbors start making high-pitched happy noises. Gojo tries to pull back, but they end up tangled in the sheets, and Marin also drops her phone, which ends up turning the lights off. Now, they're all alone inside the dark room, with Marin on top of Gojo. They're practically sharing the same breath, but just as they're about to make contact, the room phone rings and jolts them back to reality. It turns out their designated time is up, so they have to leave the room right away. While a devastated Gojo sulks in the corner, Marin scrambles to get her clothes back on, totally rattled by how close she came to riding the tailor. In the elevator, a random woman passes them and gives them a filthy smirk, clearly smelling the sweaty stench on them. When Gojo finally crawls into bed that night, he finds it difficult to sleep as he's unable to scrub the image of Marin's hovering assets out of his head. A few days later, Gojo is in his room, poking his Hina dolls when he spots fireworks out his window. He barely gets to observe them when he gets a frantic text from Marin, begging for help with a major emergency. Thinking she has finally called him to smash, he rushes to her apartment, only to find her studying with hundreds of books around. A devastated Gojo asks what the emergency is, to which she reveals that her dad canceled her summer festival plans as punishment, because for the last 6 months she's been a naughty little delinquent who ignored her responsibilities. Marin whines about missing the fireworks, but Gojo flat out tells her that he can make liquid explosions inside her right now. Marin finally admits she's been so focused on her modeling career that her studies have taken a hit. Gojo doesn't understand what keeps her so busy and demands to know the details. Marin then hands him a fashion magazine which has her own face plastered on the cover. Gojo's brain short-circuits because getting a cover spot is a massive deal, but Marin just laughs, claiming she's just an amateur and the magazine is only for thirsty men like him. She further reveals that it was her queer hairstylist who hooked her up with a local editor, and now she spends most of her posing for him. Gojo barely recognizes her under the layers of makeup, and she proudly reveals that a famous artist did her face that day. To take a break from the brain rot books, she decides they should watch a horror movie. Even though Gojo is a complete chicken who jumps at his own shadow, Marin insists on the movie. She's clearly looking for a reason to have him scurry between her juicy thighs when there's a jump scare. However, when the movie starts, it is Marin who's clinging to his arm and shaking like a vibrator. Gojo, on the other hand, doesn't even flinch at the sight as he's more distracted by the giant bazookas in front of him. When the movie ends, he tries to act like a Giga Chad by rewinding the footage and studying the makeup of the female ghosts. Marin looks away in horror, but the weirdo seems to be turned on even by bloodthirsty female ghosts. After finishing most of her work, Marin begins shrieking in joy like she just climaxed. She believes she won't have to do the math assignments, but Gojo ruins her life by mentioning that she left her algebra books at school. The two thus trek back to campus to grab the books, and on the way back, Gojo invites her over to dinner at her place. Marin is so hungry that she can even eat Gojo Jr. right now, so she accepts the invitation right away. While walking through the school compound, Marin kneels to check out the pool water like a thirsty animal. Gojo tells her to be careful, but she ends up face-planting herself into the deep end in Looney Tunes fashion. Gojo waits for her to resurface, but when he realizes that her heavy airbags are basically anchors that won't let her swim, he dives in to save her. The two soon come out all wet and moist, and Marin admits that she usually avoids swimming at the beach because she's too busy eating and creeping at other handsome men. Gojo says he gets it because he's a certified creep himself, who would not hesitate to clap Hina dolls if given the permission. He then starts another sob story about how much he loves those dolls, even though he's a failure at making them. Surprisingly, Marin is impressed by his stupid story and starts urging him that they should go to the festival for inspiration. Gojo reminds her that she still has to finish her algebra assignments, but Marin says she'll be happier if he finishes off inside her. Upon reaching home, Gojo puts on his best outfit, which makes him look like a peasant and prepares to head out. His nosy grandfather follows him to the door, and Gojo honestly tells him that he's going to the festival to clap some cheeks. Upon hearing this, the old man grins, relieved that his grandson is finally going to get some action. Later, Gojo reaches the festival, which is crowded like a Mumbai train station, and starts panicking if he'll ever be able to find Marin. Just when he's about to have another seizure, she appears in a beautiful yukata dress that barely contains her assets. Gojo stands there like a brain-dead statue, so Marin teases him, asking if he's trying to find a good angle for a sneaky neck kiss. This flusters Gojo and his face turns red like period blood, but he controls himself from gooning in his pants. The two then wander around the stalls, and Marin initially just eats an apple candy, but the demon inside her soon awakens, and she enters every stall and starts hoarding snacks like she's preparing for a famine. Soon after, the fireworks go off in the sky, and Gojo shamefully reveals that it's the first time he's seeing such explosions up close. The sight of thousands of colors melting in the sky almost fries his tiny brain. He then looks at Marin, who's busy sucking on some candy, and finds a sense of calm amid the chaotic moment. She catches him staring like a creep and sticks out her blue tongue, which looks like she just gave Papa Smurf a head. Gojo is traumatized by the sight, but he forces out a laugh just for the love of the game. Later, Marin's sandals start chewing up her feet, so Gojo offers to find bandages. But Marin decides it's easier to just ride him, and suddenly she's mounted on Gojo's back like a trekking bag. Marin has a lot of fun on top of him, but Gojo finds it extremely difficult to walk with two massive boulders on his back. Regardless, he continues walking and they discuss various conspiracy theories and about the next US presidential election. Marin also vows to come back to the festival the next year with a better pair of slippers so they can explore more candy stalls. Later that night, as Gojo is getting ready to crash, his phone rings. It's none other than Marin, who's absolutely terrified after watching the horror movie's sequel alone. Every creak in her apartment sounds like a ghost coming to claim her undies, and she begs Gojo to stay on the line until she falls asleep. The simp has zero social life and even less dignity, so he agrees and slumps onto his bed with the phone on speaker. Marin keeps on blabbering about the time they spent this summer, while Gojo simply listens without uttering a word. She recalls the beach trips, the sweaty cosplay shoots, and the manga cafes where they wasted their lives. Gojo is so bored by the conversation that he ends up falling asleep first, and hearing his loud snores, Marin smiles alone in the dark like a nasty predator. She softly whispers to Gojo that she loves him, and for a moment, she feels as if the two are in the same bed, sleeping next to each other. If you watch this anime recap until the end, comment down Unga Bungas. If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video.